Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of What Are You Staring At? But before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians on the land in which we are meeting and also pay our respects to elders past and present and extend those respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait people listening all over our country. I am bringing this podcast to you on the land of the Turrbal people, Belle.
I am on the land of the Wurundjeri people today, Tris.
Perfect. Thanks, Belle. And it's with great pleasure that I now get to introduce our very special guest, Paralympian, equity activist, and all-round legend, Kathleen O'Kelly-Kennedy. I did that wrong, didn't
I?
Keep going, because that is literally what everyone does.
That's what we do. Well, we're just going to keep this in. Everyone can listen to my area now. I'm sorry, Kat. I'm sorry. How are we today, though?
I'm very good, thank you. Tris O'Kelly-Kennedy. Kelly.
I like it.
Oh, Peters.
We're going to roll with that.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us.
It's very exciting to have you here, Kat. It's very nice. For our listeners at home, Kat and I like to think are long-term friends. I think she would probably say the same.
I like to think so.
We've been going to amputee camp together for many a year. And it's so nice that you're joining us here today and to see your face again, because it's been too long.
It is. It's an absolute pleasure. I've loved watching you really grow into who you are as Belle, the awesome kick-ass adult that's educating everyone all over the place about all things disability. And it's been unreal watching your growth, and I'm really, really happy to be supporting you and to meet Tris too. Peters McGillicuddy over there.
Perfect. It rolls off the
You seem pretty cool as well.
Thanks so much. Also, you can come on an episode anytime. And
if you're going to be that complimentary.
It's beautiful. But look, it is the Paralympics as we record this. And we obviously need to touch on your illustrious career. But you come from a very self-proclaimed sporty family. Were the Paralympics always a goal of yours, or what was sport for you growing up as a child with a disability?
They definitely weren't always a goal for me. I didn't know about them until a little bit later, when all the hype started happening around the Sydney Paralympic Games. So my first goal was to play for the North Melbourne Football Club in the AFL and be the first woman
nice.
to play for them. So my brother and I used to play in the backyard and do all the crowd sounds, go, I don't know if that's coming through, but the crowd roared every time we had the ball. And in my head, I was in the grand final. I was playing alongside Wayne Carey, my idol at the time. We were also in a relationship in that area, so it was great. And I was thinking about it the other day, and it was really funny. I realized that at that time, I thought the only thing that would get in my way is being female. I did not once think that my leg would play a part at all. And then, later I went for a run, and I thought, as a teenager, I went for a run and thought, there's probably other things that would get in the way of me, being the first female AFL player. So it was definitely not on the radar at all. I was just trying to look at ways that I could fit myself into the mainstream world, basically.
Totally. And speaking of, fitting yourself into various things, you are a 3-time, I believe, US national champion, or on the national champ, won the US national championship.
What did I do, Belle? Tell me.
3 times. Not long after taking up the sport, and you were actually playing for the men's team. No, that's the wrong. That's the wrong question.
You've skipped questions now.
I've totally confused myself. Let's backtrack. You, Kat, won 3 times the US national championship while on a half scholarship. And what was the biggest difference you found in access and awareness between America and Australia?
Oh, that's a great question.
Now that we finally got to it.
Yeah. Well, the biggest difference was that opportunity that I took up wasn't available here. For starters, I was on a sports scholarship in the States for wheelchair basketball, and there were other sports scholarships going around for like wheelchair tennis, track, and you don't see that here. I know that there's a bit of work being done around that in Queensland, but still got a long way to go there. So the only way I was going to get that opportunity was by being in the States. And I think in and around campus, I was really lucky because the University of Illinois is the home of wheelchair basketball in the States. In that sense, it was the first collegiate team to come together, and it's got a very proud history there. And they're very used, people on campus are very used to seeing people with disabilities everywhere. So that was really refreshing. There was no real issue with access. It was the doors, people didn't awkwardly hold the doors open for you because they were all automated. I love that, because it's so awkward when they're trying to do something nice for you, but then you're a little far away and you can't speed up, and they're still trying, and they're thinking, maybe I'm running late here, should I just leave them? No, that would make me a bad person. It goes on. There's none of that awkwardness because they're all automated.
That is
so
nice.
I did find there was a bit of what would you say? The inspiration word was thrown around a lot when it came to the disabled athletes. But what I liked was that the athletes without disabilities on campus didn't really treat us like that necessarily. We were just like part of the group of athletes that were there. So we studied in the same study hall. We all tried to go to each other's different games and stuff. And I love that. I became good friends with a lot of the guys on the stand-up basketball team. They just enjoyed how different I was as this very, I'm not backwards and coming forwards, am I? So I was just a bit out there, Australian that they couldn't really understand, but also like a white Australian and not understanding, a lot of the guys were Black Americans, and I couldn't understand anything they were saying. They couldn't understand anything I was saying. We just had a good laugh around that. But they never made us feel like we were segregated in that sense, and they always tried to support us and we tried to support them. So, and those friendships have lasted outside of college, which is awesome. So yeah, there was they're the main observations. I think that it was definitely a lot more accessible, that particular university. And I know most of the other universities that have those programs are similar. That's thought about. And people were just very used to seeing people like you. So there wasn't as much staring and that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's I think we've got some way to go in Australia to getting that level of awareness. But we will get there, I have no doubt. But speaking about Australia, that was a very poor segue. But I now want to focus on your Australian representation for wheelchair basketball, specifically winning bronze at the Beijing Paralympics.
Rose gold.
Rose gold.
Yeah,
I like that. It's good clarification.
I took that from the Boomers. I think that's great.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, it's weird that like people talk about that being the first medal in basketball, the Boomers at the recent Olympics, but you guys did it first, 2008.
We've been leading the way for all the basketball teams in Australia for a while. The Rollers, also have a proud history of winning medals. Australia has won gold medals, and that was done by the Aussie Rollers as well. But I like that, we all come under the same umbrella in Basketball Australia, but I think there's probably a long way to go in acknowledging us in similar ways when we do succeed, because I don't remember that kind of hype when our Rollers won gold in Beijing and we won bronze.
Yeah, for sure. But speaking of Beijing, what was it like? Tell us, what's the one moment you remember from 2008? You can only pick one.
Oh no. Can I pick two?
Okay, we'll allow it.
Okay. All right. So the first one was like an epiphany I had when I caught myself staring the same way that people without disabilities stare at me. And it was curiosity. But I could not stop staring at this guy in the food hall, from an athlete from, I think he was a swimmer from China, who was eating his meal with chopsticks with his feet. And I was just blown away. Like, thought it was pretty, but I realized, oh my God, Kat, stop staring, because I kept going back. And then I realized that must be how some people feel when they're seeing me and they haven't seen anyone like me before, because I hadn't seen anything like that before. Now it's just like, oh yeah, that's how you eat. But I do get it. I sort of had a realization, and I had a little bit more empathy rather than just feeling frustrated with them. I still don't encourage staring, but I do get it. And yes, it was weird being in that role, really weird. The second memory was so I'd been in college. This is a good segue, actually. So I'd been in college and I played with my teammates on the University of Illinois. We've been very successful together. Some of us were from the US, Australia, Germany, Finland, like all over the place, Canada. And we finished with bronze. Germany finished with silver, and the US finished with gold. And I remember being on the podium receiving our medals, and it is nicer winning bronze than it is winning silver, because you lost your last game.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. So the Germans are looking a little bit salty. The wound was still pretty raw because they just finished that game, and we were just like on a high because we'd managed to secure a medal, and obviously the US were buzzing, and they were my teammates and my friends and my housemates and all of that. So it was a very weird mix of emotions, being happy with my teammates, but also being like, having this sadness for my friend Adina on the German team, who was my housemate. But then I'd look over at my American friends and be like, and I was kind of like, yeah, it was just weird. And it's a bit hard to talk about with people that are, staunch Aussie, and I am, but they're my mates, and that was bigger than sport to me, those feelings. I was really, really happy. I knew how hard they'd all worked, knew how hard we'd worked, and we'd all managed to get on the podium, and it was just a really special moment to share it with them too.
I remember watching the 2008 not Paralympics, actually the Olympics at primary school. They like wheeled in the telly on a Friday afternoon so we could watch it. Nice. And I remember at the time being like, where are the people that look like me? Because I just didn't know. It was the same sort of thing as you, Kat, when you were younger.
Yeah.
And, then obviously in the London Olympics and the Rio Olympics, we've seen these amazing campaigns around the Paralympics, the superhuman idea and all of that stuff that's done such a wonderful job of promoting the Paralympics. But then there's that sort of undertone of like the inspiration-y porn stuff. And how do you like feel about reconciling those two things? Like, we want acknowledgement and representation, but how do we do it?
Isn't it tricky? No, because I guess people are going to get their inspiration from wherever they get it from, and you can't really control that. But I think I don't like the narrative that every person with a disability has to live this extraordinary life either, just to be accepted. And that's unfortunately what can happen with the Paralympics, with the Paralympic movement, is that sort of people just expecting so much of you, and you start expecting, as an athlete myself, I started expecting that of myself. So like I didn't realize, but once I got right into wheelchair basketball and it really became my life for a long time there, I wrapped too much of my identity up in being this elite athlete and making teams. So when I didn't make the team for London, I was devastated on a different level, because all of a sudden my disability wasn't okay anymore. I hadn't, that was a real tough thing to deal with, and realize that's what I'd done, and then work through those feelings as well, so I don't do that again. And I think that's a trick, that's a trap that we can fall into. But I really like the latest campaign that Paralympics, the International Paralympic Committee, has put out, just sort of more focusing on, well, that we're all just ordinary people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. It's not we don't have to be these superhumans. I don't know, because I got all the feels when I watched that Superhuman campaign
Me
as
too.
well. Did you guys? Yeah.
Massively.
Absolutely.
I loved it at the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And watching, you know, Rising Phoenix as well, I got similar like feelings. But then I also thought, oh God, I don't want people with disabilities to grow up thinking this is their only avenue as well. Like, well, I know I'll get accepted if I do a sport.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
There's so many other things you could be doing. So in the work that I do, I really like to sit down with whoever it is and figure out. Of course, I'll say, you know, you can do sport, but you know, you can also do anything. Like it's not about going to the Paralympics. It's just about being really comfortable with who you are, and then from that being able to explore more of what you can do with who you are.
Yeah, so well said. I have a friend that often talks about the Paralympics in the way that if it was an able-bodied person doing that particular sport, we'd be inspired by them too. So that's the question we need to ask ourselves, I suppose, is if it's an able person doing it and we're still inspired, cool, let's be inspired. But as you say, sport's not the only avenue. There's so much more out there. So,
but it's also, I think the intention behind what they're saying is really important too. So like I can tell when someone thinks I'm inspirational because I'm an incredible athlete. No, but like that's worked really hard to you know, be the best that I can be as an athlete. I can tell when someone's inspired by that, and I've got no qualms with anyone being inspired by that or motivated by that. I kind of prefer that word. But with I can also tell if they're inspired because they just think it's great that I got out of bed, you know.
Exactly.
And I don't like that one.
But speaking of your amazing athletic records, one of my favorite facts.
I'm not that. I was joking.
No, I'm going with it. I'm running with the segue because it's genuinely. I found this amazing. Is that you actually competed for? My Italian is not great. Sassari and Roma Elicom. Is that
was good? Sassari, yeah.
Sassari,
all right. We'll take it. I used to go mio Italiano e molto male.
Perfect. I mean, better said than me. But for those who don't know, this is the men's European Championship team. So you're competing alongside the men in wheelchair basketball, and you won a bronze for Roma Elicom. I mean, one of the things that I want to ask is, has gender impacted your experience or opportunity as a para-athlete, or is the community more equitable?
Yes, it has impacted my experience. I think we've got a lot of work to do in that space to create safe spaces for women with disabilities to explore sport and recreation. And we need to make sure that whatever space I'm encouraging a young girl to participate in, I make sure that they're going to be safe and that they feel like they can talk if they don't feel safe, and the processes in place to support them and protect them. So there needs to be sort of a lot of work on how to treat everyone with respect and dignity, and to have a zero tolerance for anyone that doesn't do so, no matter what the case, whether it be being inclusive and supportive of women or First Nations people, LGBTQ plus community that works. You know, we've really got to work on making sure that, you know, we're pushing for inclusion. We've got to make sure we're inclusive.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, exactly. You think about sport as a place where you can go and sort of forget about those things and just be a competitor and not worry about difference. And then if it's not that for people, it's such a letdown and such a shame that those aren't the communities that have you know existed. You know, talking about creating an inclusive space for all sorts of peoples, all minority groups, First Nation peoples you mentioned. You helped establish the Red Dust Healers, which I just think is one of the coolest things that I like about you, Kat. And you know, it's a place for opportunities in sport, education, and all of those sorts of things for First Nations peoples as well as other people. So what are some of the best and worst ways? I mean, you know, you've talked about sport as an icebreaker and wheelchair basketball as an icebreaker and allowing different people to experience that. And so what are some of the best ways and worst ways that people have talked to you about your disability and tried to break the ice and that sort of thing?
Gosh, a list of worst ways. I feel like all three of us could probably write a book on that. The awkward interactions we've had with people. I had a man this has happened more than once, but this guy stands out because it was just there was no one else around, but I was walking down a country town, the main street of a country town with my mum. And this was a bit much for her because she hadn't really seen this happen before either. But this man who I do not know just yelled and pointed and said, "You've got one leg." And I was like, "Yeah, great. That's a good observation. You're rude." And he's like, oh no, I was like, "No, but you are." Like, that was really rude. And I was smiling, but at the same time, my whole body tensed up and I was trying to keep it together, and Mum was horrified. And then he tried to have a chat about it, and I was like, "That's not how you go about it, mate. And I'm not going to keep talking because I don't owe you that, but please don't do that to anyone else again. It's just not okay." He's like, "Oh yeah," and just scrumped off. But it was such an odd. That was really full on. But I'll get little kids doing the same thing, and some adults, and I choose my moments as well. Like, I had someone do that with me, who I knew had an intellectual disability, and I was a lot gentler than that, and showed him, and I was like, we chatted about how my leg works differently and his head works differently, and his mum came back to me later and had a bit of a cry and said that was really, thank you. But I think it's just about reading the moment still. But yeah, I'm no longer going to, I used to entertain just straight up rudeness, because it doesn't matter what the situation. Like, you wouldn't, like, someone's walking down like with a pregnant belly, you're just gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm pregnant." Like, well, they also may not be, but like, you don't do that, Like, I have to give all these examples of people who go, "Oh yeah, that is a bit rude." But I think, like, the best way is just people just talking to me as Kat, and it often doesn't ever like come up for a very long time unless it's like part of something. Like, I had to tell someone who became my friend, "Could you please like slow down?" She's like, "Oh, sorry, I forgot about your leg." And I was like, "Oh, I need you to remember about it sometimes because I can't keep up." Like, you can see it. I need you to see my disability because like I was panting. But I think that the best way is honestly like just chatting to the person, and then if there is something that if you're nervous about how someone likes to be referred to, because I know, like, I don't have any issues with the word disability and being a disabled person, but some people do. I don't care about people first. I used to. That's changed, but I know other people don't think that either, and we're all different. Like, disability is diverse as everyone else, so we're not all going to think the same way. And I think appreciating that, helping people to understand that. So just like if you were speaking to a First Nations person, you'd ask, "Do you prefer to be called Indigenous or Aboriginal or First Nations?" It's the same thing with us. I think we shouldn't be fighting each other with what we want to be called, because that's not working. But it is nice to encourage people to just say, "Hey, are you okay with this word? Like, how do you like to be referred to?" I'd say Kat first, and then go with, "I'm happy being called a disabled person and I'm an amputee." Easy peasy. Moving on.
Spot on. On that, I was also reading, you said that one of your favorite achievements is that you're actually a foster carer or a foster carer. And I find that when particularly I'm speaking to kids or children, they're so curious about disability, and it's such more natural, innate way talking to them about it because they don't have those entrenched stereotypes and those type of things. Sophie, I mean, how do you speak to children about disability, or when they've never encountered it before?
I don't, not the same way I would approach an adult coming up and saying that. I really just normalize it as much as I can. Like, it's no big deal. Oh yeah, this is what I used to get around. You know, I go to a special doctor. It depends on the age and how you change it. But and I get to choose the colors, and that sort of gets them, because some are just like, you know, all they want to do is touch it, and and others are a little bit taken aback. But it's not a bad thing to say, hey, you know, you got to ask before you touch. Like, it's not bad to be teaching that, and for the parents to hear that and then go back and reinforce it as well. So I think it's good to still be reinforcing some boundaries and like expectations around how they should be interacting with people with disabilities, because I don't think we're helping the little kids with disabilities that they might be interacting with if they're going to encroach on their space as well and feel like they can, you know, do and say whatever they want. So I do still encourage a level of, you know, kindness and empathy there, just through the way I chat with them. And I had this lovely little chat. So I was working at a pizza restaurant, and the ice cream shop like across from us has a little girl. Like, they have a little girl that comes over and says hello, and she wanted to ask about my leg, and she came up with her mum, and her mum said, is it okay, you know, you can say no. So, oh yeah, sure. So we went outside and sat down. Like, I was terrible at that job. So bye guys, I'm going to go talk disability. 7-year-old. Anyway, she asked me all the questions. Yeah, and they were good questions. She's like, why do you have it? And, you know, I explained that, and I was like, there's lots of people like me out there, you know, and I always say that too. I'm not the only one. This is very normal. And I said, do you have any other questions? She's like, oh yeah. Why are there rocks on the moon? I was like, that's great. Like, that's how kids are. Like, she's okay. She gets it. She's now opened her world up a little bit more. She's registered. There's people like me, and that's how we get around. Awesome. Now I need to know why there's rocks on the moon. Easy.
That's too good.
I don't know though. I said that's not my specialty. But yeah. Glad we sorted that one out.
Yeah, and chatting more about kids, Kat, I know you fundraised to take some kids to 2000 Sydney Paralympic Games, and, you know, thinking about the Paralympics this year, if you sort of had like anything you could do, anything that you'd love to do to sort of raise awareness of it, raise the profile, what would be the way that you do that this year in 2021 for the Paralympics?
Funding. I'd put it all into creating better awareness, understanding pathways in Aboriginal communities for people with disabilities.
That is a nice
beautiful
response.
Can we like petition that you're hired to be in charge of all that? Can you?
I'd love that, guys.
Yeah, cool.
I'm still going for Kat for PM 2020.
I actually shouldn't be. So what I'm passionate about doing now is sort of finding spaces for like First Nation voices to be heard in and around that, and sort of workshopping how best to do that, and get into communities. And this was really cool. I co-hosted a virtual yarning circle between Aboriginal women with disabilities all over the country recently, and they all chatted about their experiences, mainly with sport and local sports clubs, positive, negative, all the works, things that they think could be improved on. Their voices got heard, and it was part of research that the Victorian University is doing at the moment, so it's going to be put to good use as well. And I just want their voices to continue being heard, because we're not going to see any change if that doesn't happen. We've got Paralympics Australia has 3 Indigenous athletes over in Tokyo or on the way to Tokyo, all women. Woo! We can do better than that though, and we need to honour them with that, because that's a lot of weight on their shoulders. And there were, I know now from moving around Australia and into communities, that there were definitely other Indigenous people that could have been there with them if they hadn't fallen through the cracks, and that is very upsetting. But we just need to do better.
I mean, we've got the 2032 Paralympics in Brisbane. We've got a lot of work to do before now.
We can do.
Yeah.
For sure.
But speaking of future Paralympics, you've recently taken up the sport of para-canoeing. Is that the correct term?
I call it kayaking. That confuses me a little bit, but most people call it rowing, which it is not.
It's not rowing, so at least I didn't say rowing.
No.
What sparked the transition? I mean, what caused you to do that? And what I'd like to know is what is harder, that or wheelchair basketball?
Oh, what sparked the transition? I retired after Worlds 2014. So after not making the team in London, I came back as a new coach, sort of new beginnings, all that sort of stuff. I came back and made the team for, sorry, I was trying to be diplomatic then. Made the team for Worlds, and at the end of all of that, I just, I wasn't as in love with the sport at the time as I had been previously, and I just couldn't keep going with something that I didn't feel like I could commit 110% to. I'd sort of burnt out a little bit. And, you know, a lot of it was around some experiences and stuff that, you know, I wish I hadn't had. But I do love my glider family to bits, and I've made some wonderful lifelong friendships out of that I know, you know, whether I play or not, they're there. But it was sort of time for me to hang my head up with that. And I was trying to be like, just, you know, going about and just enjoying fitness for fitness sake, and joining little, I went a bit nuts with F45 for a while there and all that sort of stuff. And I realized I still was feeling a bit competitive and I needed something else. And my friends, or former glider as well, Shelley Chaplin, invited me to come down and try some kayaking at Patterson Lakes in Victoria. And I really was just doing it for fun, very infrequently, for a couple of years there. And also while I was fostering, every now and then I would go and someone would come on and look after the kids while I did that for my respite. And then I got a call from the head coach, Ramon Anderson, over at the WA Institute of Sport for they didn't have a para program, but he was about to set one up. And the lovely Brad Ness had put my name in it because he'd seen me kayaking a little bit on Instagram. Sorry, Brad Ness is a wheelchair basketballer as well, if you don't know who he is. Can you tell me you don't know who he is? Because he thinks everyone knows who he is.
I don't know who he is. So. I'm going to say it.
Yeah, no. Well, I'll just have to,
Brad. I'm sorry,
I mean,
Brad,
he was the flag bearer in Rio, and he has been to 5 Paralympic Games. But
so, you know, we should know.
He'll tell you about that. So no, he's fantastic. He's constantly figuring out how he can just support anyone and everyone that wants to get involved. He invited me over because I go there for work sometimes anyway. He said, next time you're over for work, just come check the place out, whatever. No, you don't have to make any promises. Got there. I got hustled, basically. Like the Waste Institute, like it's just the best possible place you could be training. It's fully integrated. It's fully accessible. They got me in the heat chamber. That was fun. I know most people would think that's not fun. I love the heat chamber. They got me on the water with the main group. I was terrible, but, you know, room for improvement. And there were dolphins and there was a really lovely sunrise. And I just put this whole thing on and I can't say no now. Yeah. So I packed the car up and went over to WA, and I thought it'd be cool to be part of something new as well. And the water became a very healing space for me. I was doing it for fun, but I like being on the water, in the water, whatever to do with water. I find it very healing. So I think I needed it. And then, yeah, the competitive side of me came out and they said, you could go to a Paralympics for this. Oh, guys, don't. So yeah, here I am. And I got pretty close to Tokyo.
And that leads very nicely on to what's next? What's happening? What's the plan? Sports-wise, life-wise, what's happening in your world? What's the big things coming up?
Well, I've had a lovely time just getting some family time in, doing some R&R stuff here in Melbourne lockdown, because that's basically all you can do in a lockdown. So plenty of mum hugs, dad hugs, chasing my sister for hugs. Got one hug off my brother. Like I'm, I worked on the hug, and time with the dogs as well, because I just really missed everyone. Hey, it was a long time between seeing them, so that's really just refreshed me. I think I need to hit that refresh button. So as soon as I get back to WA in a few days, I will then have to quarantine, but which should be fun as well. But I would just be getting back on the water and getting stuck into training for nationals next year, and hopefully I can make a national team for next year. And the goal is Paris. That's nice for me personally. In terms of world domination, things are on track.
Nice. Prime Minister coming
everything's
up.
a bit hush-hush at the moment.
Don't reveal all your secrets at once. Keep some of it under wraps.
My goal is to be in the crowd at Paris watching you. That's the goal. Got the Pfizer. Let's get to Paris.
That would be unreal.
I've decided my goal is, once all this COVID's finished, both of you need to come to Queensland to play power chair football.
Yes.
Because I feel like the third sport's calling you, Kat.
And if it's not, this isn't, guys, I've tried rowing. I've played sit volleyball, wheelchair rugby. I mean, anything in it. Well, wheelchair AFL. I'm a sports, I don't know what word to use there. So I was going to use one. I decided to stop myself. Fanatic. There you go.
Is that not a good one?
No, that's not.
Okay. I was worried that had some implication that I didn't know. I'm a hussy.
Enthusiast.
I'm constantly cheating on other sports because I love trying things. It's so much fun. It really is. It's unreal. So I would love to do that with you. And if it's not filmed, it doesn't happen. So
yeah, it's definitely becoming a vlog episode of the podcast.
And I will beat you as well, just so you know.
See, this is Belle's going to attest to my competitiveness. So I know you're
he's
joking.
Pretty darn good.
I know you're joking.
Oh, I'm sure you are.
It's now I'm getting serious all of a sudden. No, I have no doubt.
I love a good trash talk. That's all.
Tris won a bet with me last week and I had to send him donuts from Melbourne. So don't make too many promises.
I would like to say that
donuts.
The premier,
Uber eats them.
The premier athlete that is Kat, I don't think if she won a bet, she would ask for donuts.
No, probably
I feel
not.
like
Although we can indulge.
Bit,
no, I probably would.
Oh, you would?
Yeah, I was going to say.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, Kat, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we'll put some of your things in our show notes where people can find you and support you, because we love to push you as far and wide as possible, and hopefully get as many people watching you in 2024 Paralympics.
Yes.
Oh, thanks. Oh, look, thanks for being you, Tris, and thanks for being you, Belle. And I had a really, really awesome time chatting with you guys today. Keep up the amazing work.
Well, we love you.
Kathleen O'Kelly-Kennedy, thank you very much.